Right. Dyami Brown just be out that jump running around. Like Alex said, I had Alex. Alex was like, man, but he had a great block on that play. We didn't have Dyami Brown to be a fullback. This man had 80 more yards on the season than me. 80 more yards on the season than me.
Chill.
Nah. Let's talk about it.
Let's
We
talk
were
about it.
No, you know why I go in on Dyami Brown? Because me included, we were so hyped when we drafted him. All of us.
And when we seen him on Friday Night Football,
training camp, we saw him. The lights are too big for this man. Ask Rio, and I'm not trying to start. It's like, oh, we just go to the game. He realized be out there like he don't know the playbook. And it looks like it because Taylor don't even be looking bro way.
What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Today is Thursday, July 7th. We're 3 weeks away from Washington training camp, and I got my boy, my guy Jalen of the Bleeding B&G podcast coming on with me today. We're going to be talking a little bit of year 2 expectations for Dyami Brown. You just touched back down from LAX, man. How you feel right now?
I did. You guys can probably see it all in my face. I was in Cali for about 4.5 days. I feel amazing. Physically, I don't. A little jet lag, a little hitting the gap. But I got out there, did a lot of rest and recovery because, I teach, so the school year ended about a week before. But I also went out there to see some views. Catch a Cali vibe. I actually went to see SoFi Stadium, which is easily the best stadium in the NFL, like by far. Like they got like two lakes in front of the stadium. I was so determined to get there. The gate was actually blocked off, so I parked on the main road. Like I left my headsets on. I was like, I'll be back. Like if they tow the car, they tow the car because I got to see this. Like how often are you out there? But the stadium is crazy. Like I was telling you guys, when you walk under the roof, it like automatically like gets cool in there. Not cold, but like room temperature. Like
That's dope.
It's different, and even like the lighting changes. Like how Rams games look on the field, how everything is like super bright and things like that. It looks exactly like that. So beautiful experience. Never seen a stadium with palm trees. It was crazy. It was crazy for sure.
Night and day difference from what the stadium that me and you attend every Sunday for these games at FedEx Field. And hopefully we've taken precedent. We saw Jason and Dan do a tour of all the stadiums and stuff, specifically SoFi. Go ahead and steal some of that, because from the pictures and videos you sent, the ones that you sent personally, because in the group chat, we don't get to appreciate it because we got an Android user in the group chat that be graining up all the pictures and shit.
No names.
No name. You know who you are. But yeah, man, let's get to it, man. We're talking wide receiver year 2. Mr. Dyami Brown. I'd call him the forgotten one in the wide receiver room right now. We went and drafted a receiver in the first round, Jahan Dotson out of Penn State with the 16th pick. We're getting Curtis Samuel back this year, and Terry just got his mega deal. What are your realistic expectations for Dyami in year 2? Are fans sleeping on him, and how does he fit into this wide receiver equation that we now have, which seems like kind of a log jam and influx of talent at the position?
Man, I'm glad that you brought me onto this episode, because if we can agree, I think that, us over at Bleeding B&G, I think that we were like arguably the most critical of Dyami Brown last year. And there's a reason for that, though. Like, we coined the term Dyami Brown just be out there running around. Like, there's a reason for that, though. And it's because we were so high on Dyami initially. We spent the 2020 draft together. He was actually like my number 3 guy behind like a guy like Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. So I thought that the talent was there with him coming out of, North Carolina and things like that. And I thought that he gave us something that we needed. I thought that he was like the 3rd best boundary receiver in that draft class. Because if you look at our receiver room now, we have a lot of interchangeable parts in like Jahan Dotson, in Curtis Samuel, even a guy like Terry McLaurin. I think Terry does some of his best work in the slot, especially with some of the way he sets up his stems and things like that. Those are Terry does a lot of groundwork from the slot and things like that. But Dyami gave us that guy that was going to simply be on the outside, not necessarily the X, but maybe the Z, take the top off of the defense and things like that. And we simply did not get that last year. And I think a lot of it was because, us as season ticket holders, we get the all 22, we get the view, and we see what's actually going on in the field. I think that he spent a lot of his season not necessarily knowing the playbook. You can see times like before the snap where he was looking over to a guy trying to see what's the route concept and things like you can just see it. He'll be breaking the huddle. Like you'll see him talking to a Terry, like, what am I supposed to do in this route? Like you can see it. And then when the play will happen in the fruition, he'll just end up in the wrong spot or somewhere he's not supposed to be, totally outside of the QB's vision and eye line and things like that. So I thought that he didn't necessarily know the playbook, but we also didn't necessarily match his skill set with the best QB compatible quarterback for his skill set, which is Dyami's a deep barrel receiver, which is kind of crazy because I've always pointed out how he's not the fastest guy.
He's not a burner.
He's not a burner at all. He ran a 4.45 unofficially. So he might be like a 4.5 unofficial guy, but he still takes the top off.
Yeah, that was a COVID 40.
Yeah, it was a COVID 40, and it still wasn't, eye popping, blow your eyes out numbers or anything like that. But he still managed to take the top off defense, and he started to do that towards the end of last season. You saw the catch he had against Dallas. I remember even in week 1, I think it was Fitz that threw the pass. I think it was early, but he had beat Asante Samuel Jr. on that go route. I think he got a pass interference. Yep, and Asante Samuel had a really solid rookie year. So, the deep threat ability is there. We saw him over at minicamp. He's got a lot bigger, so hopefully he didn't lose any of the speed that he had. But I think that he's ready to take a big role this season. Like you said, he's the forgotten man in the receiver room, and it might be crazy that us over at Bleeding B&G is saying this with us being so harsh on him, but you've paired him with a quarterback that's compatible with his skill set. No matter how I think Carson Wentz is, I know that he can throw the football a quarter mile, and he can get the ball to Dyami places that Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, or anybody you want to name that played last year just couldn't. So I think that the prospects for Dyami Brown are actually pretty good. I've actually dangled, I know I've dangled in the group chat that I think that he might actually outproduce our first-round draft pick in Jahan Dotson. But I think this is going to be a huge bounce back year for Dyami Brown.
Spicy. And I think with fans, we're kind of split with how we view Dyami. Half of the fans will say it was all Heineke's fault that he struggled last year. And the other half, like us, will say it looks like he was lost in the offense. He couldn't get off press man, and he was just out there literally running around for a little bit of the season, like to try to get adjusted. Not every third round pick is created equal, so maybe it was our fault for thinking he was going to come in. I was saying outlandish things. I was like, this is the most talented receiver on the roster, including Terry. Bless my heart for saying that. But we saw him up close in Richmond. We saw him at Friday Night Football at FedEx Field doing work last year. We saw the dude. He had an amazing offseason, and it's just, at the end of the day, it's inexcusable that he finished the year with 12 catches for 165 yards. That's like
one game stats. That's one game stats.
That's an elite receiver's good game. That's a Cooper Kupp game. One Cooper Kupp game, and it didn't make me too happy to see that our 7th round pick, Dax Milne, he looked like he got more separation on a regular basis, and there was a more carved out niche on the offense for him than Dyami. But I think Dyami can be exactly what we need. I think the pressure's alleviated from him. He's not expected to go out and have to be our second option or third option necessarily. He's the only guy in the room that consistently we can call a deep threat. Like, Terry can take the top off of defense, and he's great at contesting catching. Jahan can get behind the defense. But I'd say Dyami is the only guy in the room whose specific skill set is take the top off the defense. And like you said, we got a quarterback with a howitzer now. So we should definitely see Dyami utilized more and better this upcoming season. But I saw the dude at North Carolina, man. And we even drafted his boy, Sam Howell. I expect to see a Sam Howell, Dyami Brown show this preseason. I expect to see both of them on the field plenty and often and doing work and getting right back to it. Dyami averaged 20 yards a catch, 50 catches, over 1,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns in his last 2 years at North Carolina. How close can we get to seeing that Dyami Brown, and what are your stat expectations for him?
As far as counting stats and things like that, I don't think that he's going to be close to 1,000 yards or anything like that, but I can see him teetering around that yard per catch, maybe around that 17 to 20 yard per catch mark, because I think that's going to simply be his role in this offense. I know a lot of the conversation with Terry signing his contract and things like that is he going to take the next step? And I know a lot of the people who doubt it talk about how many weapons we have in the offense. Well, that works for every other receiver as well. So I don't want to hear that, not necessarily as an excuse for Terry, but then that'd be a reason why we knock Dyami, because his counting stats aren't necessarily as high. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So as terms as like his role in the offense, because I think we are going to spread the pill around. Like I said, I think he's going to average about 17 to 20 yards per catch. So he might end up with about 40 receptions or something like that, but he'll be teetering around that 650 to 700 yard mark. Because like we both said, he's the deep threat in this offense. He's the one sole guy that you can put on the backside. You can put the three Smurfs over there, and Terry, Curtis, and Jahan, and you got to have Dyami rock out. We saw how big he got in the offseason. I've been joking and calling him Anquan Bolden. He's not necessarily that big, but you saw we saw it like walking out. It wasn't even necessarily something that you needed to be on the field to see. You can see how his chest has gotten bigger. You can see that he was worried about his play strength. And you know what was one of the craziest things about, you are 100% right about him and his incapabilities of getting off press man. But one of the like viral highlights of going through training camp last year was him burning Kendall Fuller at the line,
burning them boys,
burning them. Like that was one of the like viral highlights that it came out of a training camp, because he made Kendall spin around on the slant route. So he has it in him. Like he does have it in him. And I know it was just training camp, and I didn't necessarily see it last year. But hopefully, you know, him working with Akeem Nicks, who at his peak, I think a lot of people forget about how good peak Akeem Nicks was.
That boy got
look at 2010 to 2013-ish, Akeem Nicks, he was that guy. He was arguably the best receiver in the division, Derek Bryan included. Go look at the numbers. Go look at the numbers. Go look at the numbers. So he's been down there. You know, he got the Dyami show going on YouTube. He's been down there working with Akeem Nicks. But did you notice one thing? Let me know if you noticed this. The Dyami show ended right after we drafted Jahan Dotson. I don't know if you peeked. I don't know if you peeked. It was an episode that week, and I haven't seen an episode since. So he's feeling that pressure. That tells me that he's feeling that pressure, and he's putting the work in. We saw it our day at minicamp, and I'm hopeful to see it through training camp and throughout the regular season.
Yeah, I don't know what Nick's got them on out there, but yeah, he's yoked now, bro. Like he looks like a completely different guy. He feels the pressure. You hear it in his off-season and minicamp presser, how he talks about how he feels humbled, and that sometimes you can feel like you arrived when you didn't yet, and you know that there's more work to do. You love to hear that from a guy, because there's some guys, Jamin Davis, who they didn't really show us much in their rookie year, but they act like that they're like they're established. And
Jamin Davis talking like he an all-pro.
He do, bro. Watch Jamin on his lives. I love the confidence, but I love the self-awareness of Dyami to know that rookie year wasn't close to his best showing. And I was enjoying his Dyami Show YouTube channel. I was enjoying it. I know people get sick of the workout warrior content, but as a content creator myself, I was loving it, bro. The high defness of the videos. Watch, first of all, I didn't know he had such a cannon and he was a lefty. Man's got an arm. Like he could have been QB2 for us last year.
Scott Turner might have something in the bag for that. Chill.
We've been seeing Scott mix it up at OTAs, bro. Some of the sets we were seeing, they're definitely about to get in their duffel this year. I won't even be too harsh with my expectation, bro. Give me 500 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, and I'm good to go. Show me you could take the top off of defense. Be an advanced version of 2012 Aldrick Robinson, and I'm good to go. Better sized Aldrick Robinson, but someone who's gonna stick around here and not like a one-trick pony. And I'm Gucci, bro.
I'm not mad at that comparison at all. And this may actually sound crazy, but I think he's going to play the role that Michael Pittman Jr. played in the Colts offense last year. We don't necessarily think of Michael Pittman Jr. as a burner or anything like that, but he was taking the top off defenses, whether that be vertical or stretching the field. And like we said earlier, Dyami isn't necessarily a burner, but he finds a way to make it work. Like, it's crazy. When he does get off the line, he gets on top of guys. Like, I will give him that. Even if he's out there just running around not knowing what he's doing, he is on top of guys, and he does have a step on guys and things like that. So, I mean, we saw Michael Pittman Jr. take that next step. I think he was close to, if not over 1,000 yards. And he was the wide receiver 1 for the Colts. I'm just talking in terms of play style and things like that. We see that Carson's going to take his chances. And out of the guys that's expected to see at least, 40% of the snaps, Dyami's the biggest receiver by far. Mm-hmm. Like, he's the biggest receiver by far outside of Cam Sims, who I don't expect to see have a huge role this year. So we know Carson loves his big body receivers. So Dyami's going to get his chances for sure. I like that touchdown number. I think he might be close to about 5 or 6, just simply because I see a lot of deep ball, big playability in this offense this year for sure.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're buying Dyami stock for the 22 season. We're buying, not selling, right?
I'm buying it while it's low, like good investors do, because when it skyrocket, I'm gonna be a rich man. Because I guess it's going to skyrocket. It has to. You can only go but up from last year. Like, if we're being honest, like we said, those were 1 game stats. That's a Cooper Cup. That's a Cooper Cup modest game stat line. Like that's what your season looked like. Yeah. So I mean, it can only go but up, right?
Hell yeah. And some people get it twisted and think, oh, he only played a few games. No, he played 15 games last year. He played 15 games.
It's crazy that you say that, because whenever we were harsh about Dyami last year, they're like, man, the knee injury, he was playing in those games. Like, I don't care. He was healthy enough to come back in those games. Like, he didn't miss those games. He missed 2 games last year. Playing on the knee or not, everybody in the NFL plays hurt.
Hell yeah. So how do you see, to close this out, how do you see the wide receiver room shaping out? How do you see, what were we keeping 6, 7, and who are the guys going to be?
I'm excited. I'm excited about this wide receiver room for sure, because as I mentioned before, you have a lot of interchangeable pieces, but you also have those guys that have their role, right? Like, we have Terry, who's the X. Like, he's the dude. Everybody knows he's the dude. Even I love the fact that you brought up Dyami's presser, because that was probably my favorite presser of the offseason. Minus, Cam Curl calling out the media, because he was so humble, he was so modest, and you could tell like the NFL hit him like a ton of bricks, and he was honest about it. Like, he let it be known. But you can even tell in that presser, like, everybody in that room knows Terry's the big dog, and like, we just got to do what we need to do to compliment the big dog. Whether that be, Dyami being the deep threat guy, whether that be, can't talk about it too much, but we saw they're going to, Curtis Samuel, if he's healthy, he's going to be that gadget guy. He's going to be that wing back. He's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be all over the field. So they have that guy, but he can also line up out wide, and he can also line up in the slot. We have Jahan Dotson, who's the route technician, who I think might be a better route runner coming out of college than Terry McLaurin. I don't think he's as physical and as good as the catch point and things like that, but we have him who can play in the slot and in the boundary role as well. So we have a lot of interchangeable parts. Then we have Dyami, who I think this year is going to go ahead and go get it, taking the top off of offenses. And I know it was a COVID 40 time, but it is what it is. That's the only time we have on record. How many NFL defenses do you see checking 4 wide receivers that run sub 4.45 40s?
You don't.
You don't.
You just don't.
Don't too many NFL rosters have that.
Right.
And they're good. And they're good. Like Curtis Samuel, we can think about whatever we want of him in his Washington tenure. He's showing you he can produce on the NFL level. Jahan Dotson, we can talk about grain of salt, mini camp or whatever. He showed you what he did at Penn State, and he's carrying over to the preseason. So why should we think other than it's going to carry over to the regular season, just like it did with Terry McLaurin in his rookie year? So I'm excited for this wide receiver room. And this is the reason why I think I'm going to be eating crow or Carson Wentz a little bit, because he didn't have all these weapons when we signed him. But I think that these weapons have the potential of making him look pretty good.
Oh yeah, we got fan favorite Cam Sims. We got Dax Milne playing the DeAndre Carter role.
Oh, the 607. Not to cut you off, the 607. I think that we might only keep 6 receivers, and I think the reason for that is because we might be keeping 4 running backs.
I like. Are you trying to get your man Jared on that roster? That's what it is, bro.
A little bit. But I think that they do like Jared, and I think that if Jared doesn't make the roster, I think that he's a prime candidate for the practice squad with the new eligibility rules and things like that. But we seem to forget Jared was returning kicks in preseason last year, and he wasn't horrible doing it, especially for something that he didn't necessarily do in college or things like that. So if he dips his head in there, and we don't have a kick returner right now unless you're jotting down Alex Erickson in that role right now, who I don't think he's a shoo-in to have that spot by any means. But if Jared can dip his head into that ring in preseason and succeed at it, I think that there's a way I can see him on the roster.
There's a good fan faction that believes that Kelvin Harmon's going to make the roster. You think so, or you think he's going to be back on the practice squad?
So the fans gonna have to give it up because
facts.
No. This is why I'm saying this though. I think there's a scenario where it comes down to Kelvin Harmon or Cam Sims. Like these are both their skill sets are too redundant. And while we've bashed or not bashed, but while we've been skeptical of Kelvin Harmon's game in the past, he did look good in minicamp. He had some of his he had some of his burst back that we saw in 2019 pre-injury or things like that. So, I mean, I guess that's 2 fan favorites going head-to-head against each other. So, are you rocking with Cam Sims or are you rocking with Kelvin Harmon?
Cam Sims all day.
Yeah, me personally, I'm going to go with Cam Sims because even just last season, we saw him son Trayvon Diggs, who had a really good year. So you know what he's capable of doing. I always go back to that game he had against Pittsburgh, the one-handed bandit. I think that's what it's going to come down to, and we'll see what the organization goes to at that point.
Hell yeah, and that's all I got for right now. Next Wednesday, July 13th, 7:45 p.m. Group chat boys are back. We're going to preview training camp from all angles and all lenses, giving you a whole bunch of different takes. Me, Jalen, Tay-Ty, Alex, Marshall, Zach, the whole gang is in the building. Let folks know where they can find you, and we can go ahead and be out.
For sure. You can find me on the Bleeding BNG podcast. We're available on all podcast platforms. We have a YouTube as well. We also have social medias. Our Instagram is @BleedingBNG, BLEEDING, BNG. Our Twitter is spelled a tad bit different. Our handle is @BleedingBNG, BLEEDINBNG. So there's only one G in our Twitter handle. Be sure to chop it up over there because we love stirring the pot over there in the Washington Commander community. Rio can attest to this. We're the habitual pot stirrers over there in the Washington Commanders community. Hot takes. We love posting discussions on our Instagram, having discussions over there as well. Content posted over there daily, weekly. And be sure to check out our podcast. Our next podcast episode, we're going to be talking about what does the next step look like for Terry McLaurin with a slew of other things. So be sure to check out our podcast as well @BleedingBNG.
Hell yeah. And I'm going to have his YouTube mentioned in the title of the video, and I'm gonna have his link in the description. Make sure y'all sub my guy up. My guy needs to be at 1K plus subscribers. We got to get him there this season because my guy puts out quality content, consistent content, and real unfiltered raw content. We keep it real on this side. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Deuces.